Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Mega Whip. This finale? So, booyah! How are you kids doing in this most glorious year of 1994? I am the host with the mostly one and only K and J who came to partay, Kimble Justice! And we have got all the hottest games on our block for you, including the most awesome, the most extreme, the greatest skating game on the market! You want to kick the shinola out of the squares bugging your life? Then you watch this show. But for now, it's time to drop the pogs on all the hottest news this week. Sega wools, Nintendo drools. Say what? Psych! What the hell was that? Anyway, let's talk about one of the most kick-ass series of games in the 1990s, Road Rash, produced by a bunch of guys who'd go on to become somewhat famous. Electronic Arts were actually one of the first big third parties to make their way onto the Sega Mega Drive. They quickly made their bones by demonstrating the relative ease with which they could port PC games over to the sleek black machine, and then kicked it right up a notch with the first incarnations of their major sports titles. John Madden Football, EA Hockey, and PGA Tour Golf all hit the shelves in 1990, and all were deservedly huge hits. Very few sports games were even in the same ballpark as EA's titles back then. But there was one problem. Aside from said sports games, here's what the rest of their output looked like. EA's name was on various types of lousy game. They made ports of PC sim games like Centurion and Starflight that simply didn't transfer well to consoles, ultra clunky early 3D flight simulators like LHX Attack Chopper and F-22 Interceptor, or just plain terrible action games, things like Dark Castle and Sword of Soda. The reputation of Trip Hawkins and his band of merry men wasn't all that great. It's important to remember that the Mega Drive is actually where EA made their start in the console world. They'd been respected computer game developers for the best part of a decade, but this is where EA made the transition into how we know them now. And it seems that that transition from ultra-nerdomatic PCs to the Coolio console school was more than a little bit shaky for them. However, 1991 would be their breakthrough year. Trip Hawkins transmogrifies into Larry Probst, the company dots the I's and fists the T's, and they become known for more than their sports games. The first Road Rash was where it all started. Road Rash 1 is a fairly odd beast as it goes. Is it technically strong? Not really. The graphics are quite choppy, and while they're not terrible or anything, nor are they hugely special. The game doesn't look as good as Super Hanon, released a couple of years earlier. There's not much good in the music either, and there isn't even a proper split-screen two-player mode. And yet the game's design still has something. It's absolutely a product of its time. Let's not forget that this was 1991, the year grunge broke, Nevermind and all of that palaver. The game may not have been all that clean, but it didn't have to be. It was down and dirty, and not only did that utterly fit the time, it fit the game as well. Road Rash differs from all other bike sims in one big way. Why, you get to beat the crap out your fellow man. You're tearing down the street, and what you're doing is wholly illegal. Unsurprisingly, the cops frown on people trying to wrap chains around each other's heads. There's more of a focus on beating the crap out your fellow biker rather than actually coming in first. The game's just a way to let off some steam, you know? Even if the chances are pretty high that you'll get your bones smashed to shit by an oncoming car, just dust yourself off, get back on your bike, and onto the damn road. The first Road Rash actually feels like an alternative game. Whereas most games were all kind of colourful, cutesy, and frankly aimed at children, Road Rash was aimed at an altogether different market. The teenagers who had Kurt Cobain stencilled onto their backpacks, wore their flannel with pride, and never ever fucking washed. In short, the kids who are too damn cool for Nintendo. And if you know anything about the way Sega marketed the Mega Drive, then you know that Road Rash was exactly the sort of game they were looking for. Mad, bad, and dangerous to know. As dated as all the silly biker names are, Road Rash is a product of its time that takes you right back to the good old days, and it deserved to be a massive hit, the start of a solid series. So naturally a sequel quickly followed. Road Rash 2 dropped out and onto the shelves in 1992. What's different about it? Well, not much to be honest. This is EA we're talking about after all, so the second verse is much the same as the first. However, nothing was really broke, and what's added is only positive. Road Rash 2 features a proper competitive 2-player mode, which was the one thing the original kinda lacked. As a result, the game is probably the best remembered one from the first three. There's also all the funny little animations that play after a race finishes. It's all very much the same deal, but it hadn't even come close to getting old yet, so it's a definite keeper. Road Rash 3 World Tour followed it 3 years later in 1995. Despite 3 years out of the game, the engine hasn't changed a great deal. However, it's gone global this time and all the bikers are now digitised. The game's still rather good, although not very well remembered due to when it came out, I think. The new graphical sheen doesn't change anything about the fun that still beats at the game's core, and there's even a nod to small details, like people driving on the right side of the road on the United Kingdom track. I can appreciate that. Road Rash 3 is probably the weakest game of the 16-bit trio, but it's hardly bad. It's just perhaps a little bit dated, and perhaps you would expect a bit more tinkering to have been done to the old formula by this point. So yeah, those are the 3 main Road Rash games that hit the Mega Drive. There isn't actually a great deal to separate the trio, but EA hit exactly the right formula with their first game pretty much, and they didn't really see the need to change a lot. All of them got great scores in magazines, they all sold well, and even the third game proved that the series hadn't yet outstayed its welcome. However, it's not like nothing at all happened between the second game and the third game. There are some important versions on other consoles, and one Mega Drive kind of sort of spin-off that I would like to talk about. Undoubtedly, the most try-hard alternative attitude extreme game of the early 1990s. I am, of course, talking about... Oh god, not again! Welcome to the next level. Skitchin! Get ready to double down on the game of the decade. Hook yourself up with some quality wares, get on the road and hook yourself to the back of some other loser's car. Those squares, they won't know what hit them. They won't know what's going on when you're beating the crap out of someone on the backs of their cars. And don't forget to get yourself some big air. No, not like that, sucker. Make sure to be aware, kids, and do try this at home. Booyah! Hey, look at this guy. He's a real dude. I'll probably invite him out to dinner sometime. Psych! Christ, what a trip. Sheesh. Sketching is actually quite fun once you get past the hilarious 90s tood on display. It is basically Road Rash only on roller skates, and if anything it's even more violent. Getting hit by cars sends you flying into the sun, and it can be a quite frequent occurrence, especially when you screw up trying to hang on to the back end or make a pig's ear out of one of the many tricks you can do. It runs quite smoothly for a Mega Drive racer, and the controls are just as good as the Road Rash games on account of being virtually the same. And honestly, the ridiculous haircuts, bandanas and endless dude speak are freaking hilarious to me. Just look at these people. But then it's not like they were the only guys out there trying too hard. I mean, at least the people in Skitchin are, you know, people. Sort of. I'm not sure if anyone quite like these clowns ever truly existed, but they're here all the same, and we can laugh at them just as hard in 2013 as we did 20 years ago. And hey, it doesn't matter how stupid they are when you can just beat the shit out of them. You may well call Skitchin the collective soul to the original series Pearl Jam, but it's not a bad game despite that. I guess I always had a soft spot for Shine. Okay, there's one other Road Rash game of any real note. Confusingly, it just so happens to be called Road Rash. However, this is the one that was released for, wait for it, the 3DO. However, you can stop those alarm bells ringing right now, because this was the ludicrously expensive Monolith's killer app. People didn't think it was worth paying damn near to $1,000 to play a terrific version of Road Rash, but it was regarded as pretty good all the same. Thankfully, it was also released on the PS1, so it's easy enough to look at. Let's do it. This game is pretty much just 16-bit Road Rash, only it mixes 2D sprites with some quite odd 3D backgrounds. And it's as smooth as anything. Let's not mince words here. Road Rash 3DO is far and away the best game in the series. It's the best looking game, the best controlling, and abso-goddamn-lutely the most intense. It's souped up in all the right places, and the combat is as downright fun as it ever was. It's even got the best music in the series, and even the FMV cutscenes are bloody good. They work just as well as the little animated scenes from the 16-bit games. You can still feel the impact of just about every hit you give and receive, and you can even run people over this time out. What more could you ask for? Eat your heart out, Carmageddon. Alas, YouTube probably wouldn't be too happy if I just tied a bunch of clips from the game together with Rusty Cage by Soundgarden, but trust me, the game's an absolute stunner. It may not justify the existence and absurd price of the 3DO entirely on its own, but it comes pretty freaking close. Road Rash on 3DO, Road Rash 32-bit, or just plain Road Rash, whatever you want to call it, it's the series' finest hour. And rather unfortunately, its last hurrah. Because naturally, this is the point where everything starts to go wrong. Why? Well, they dropped the O, man. They dropped the O. Road Rash 3D hit the shelves in 1998, and by God I wish it hadn't. Road Rash is just one of many titles to fail when it comes to full 3D. We've certainly covered plenty of those in the past, but I'm not sure if I can think of one that botches everything as bad as this game does. Did they completely forget what made the series good? To quote Don Logan, it was the charge, the bolt, the buzz, the sheer fuck-offness of it all. This game's got none of that. It barely even has combat, and the strongest blow you can deliver to an opponent looks and feels kind of like a bitch slap. The controls are so much more twitchy and delicate, you've now got to properly lean and whatnot, rather than just attacking the game with reckless abandon. But the driving's just totally screwed to hell in any case. You can't even reverse in this game. You're probably best off not trying to move at all, actually. And even if a friend wanted to share this awful experience with you, they couldn't, because the game doesn't have multiplayer. They didn't bother with any cutscenes for this game even. The shitty thing is, Road Rash could have easily made the transition to 3D. No problem. Look at all the extreme games around back then. Look at all the biker games. It should have been a walk in the park. I don't know what happened, but they screwed the pooch. The game seems more like it wants to be a realistic biking game as opposed to a combat game. It forgot that it wasn't frickin' Moto Racer. Maybe Jeremy Clarkson took over the development or something, I don't know. In any case, Road Rash 3D is one of the worst racing games I have ever played. A disaster that killed the series stone dead. Well, not quite dead. There were a couple more games after this one that at least tried to put more emphasis on combat and being all grungy and shit, but the damage was done. Road Rash Jailbreak was the final game in the series, released in 2000. There's a lot more combat and mohawks in this game, but on the whole it's pretty shoddy, and by that time we were all getting our hip extreme wall breaking fix from Tony Hawk and the like. So that's the end. For now anyway. Word on the street is that Dan Giesler, one of the brains behind the original series, may join the ever-growing legions of old coders from the past who want to revive the long-dead through Kickstarter campaigns. And, you know, good luck to him. Despite the awful 3D games, the spirit of Road Rash still lives on, and most of the games in the series are pretty good on the whole. It's a down and dirty series, but a damn fine one. And with that said, it's time to end this video. So thanks for watching. Whatever. Okay, we are proud of this bitch.
Tank Fly, Boss Jam, Nitty Gritty, you've been listening to the boy from the big bad city. Wherever you are, whoever you be, peace! Booyah!